Welcome everyone. It's really great to see all of you. I'm Tricia, your nutritionist, for the next hour and 15 minutes that we have together. You're investing your time with me. You could be somewhere else right now, but you're here, so I want you to get dividends on that investment. So think about, as we go through today's materials, what is your takeaway? What makes sense for you? Even if there's just one change that you make as a result of today, or one new way of doing things, because the global longevity factors aren't all about nutrition and movement. There's more to it than that. So we'll talk about some other things that relate to longevity. So I came up with this presentation after learning about cultures that are known for longevity, and I'm going to point those cultures out to you up here. That doesn't look so clear. Let me see if I can get that a little bit. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so these are areas across the world known for longevity. There's a popular book series out now that I highly recommend, and that's The Blue Zones. This was the first one that came out. This is one of the later ones, so it's updates from here. And this is written by Dan Buettner, so he linked up with the National Geographic, and they've been sending him all over the world to areas that are known for longevity. So I'm going to point out the ones that are written up in the Blue Zones books. So we have Costa Rica, the Nicoyan Peninsula in Costa Rica. Has anyone been to Costa Rica? Oh, a few of you have. Wonderful. How is the food there? Very fresh? And a lot of people tell me it's a great place to go for vacation. The fruit is really nice. Yeah, I've heard that. So Costa Rica is over here. And right here, we have a blue zone right within our country, and that's Loma Linda, California. And I got to visit there a year ago. I mentioned in one of our sessions that I went to their senior center, and I thought it was really great that they had a vegetarian menu. So they have a regular menu and a vegetarian menu. So we'll talk more about Loma Linda. I have some pictures from my trip. And then we have the Mediterranean region. So you've all heard of the Mediterranean diet. So we'll talk more about the Mediterranean way of living. And then we have Okinawa, which is a series of islands off of the southwest coast of Japan. I do a whole hour on Okinawa. We'll touch the surface of it today. I brought in some foods to show you that are popular in Okinawa. And so we'll get to that a little later on. So the Blue Zones highlights those areas that I mentioned. Now, I learned more about Okinawa. There's two Okinawan books, the Okinawan program, this is the Okinawa diet plan. And you get to learn all about their culture from reading these books. And I've really enjoyed learning about them. Now, when I go to the Asian supermarkets, I know about certain foods I never would have known about before. So it's been really exciting. I went to the Asian supermarket today, Ming's in Boston. Have you been there? Yeah, it was so much fun going in there because we're going to learn about a recent oldest living person, and one of the things she likes to eat, eels. And I was just in the Asian supermarket, and this one, Ming's, is amazing because they have the most fish I've ever seen in a market. And then they have all these tanks. It's not just one lobster tank that you might see at your supermarket. They have there were crabs in there. There were eels swimming around. They were big. So it was really shocking to me. And I said, oh, that's what she's eating. When she says eels, there they are. And it was just kind of eye-opening because has anyone ever eaten eel before? Oh, a few of you. What do you think?
Popular sushi restaurants.
Okay.
The rolls
right, the roll, yeah.
They cook the eel.
Okay.
But I have concerns because I think when they're farm raised,
okay,
they're
not eating the best stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you like eel?
No.
No, okay, but you've tried it?
It was part of 7 different fishes.
Oh.
For Christmas Eve.
Okay, nice.
My parents always made it.
Okay.
They fried it, so.
Okay, fried eel, all right. And yes, Beth.
My grandmother used to cook them. I can see her skinning the eel.
Oh, wow.
I don't care for eel.
Okay, and did she bake it? How did she cook it? Okay, so she baked it. Did she put breading on it?
Yes.
Oh, Oh, interesting. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, so they're swimming around at Ming's Market if you're looking to get some fresh eel. You can't, I mean, to get it fresher than that is hard. I don't know if they're farm. I didn't see any signs how they're raised, but it was very eye-opening and exciting. All right, so those areas I mentioned are written up in the blue zones. There's the Okinawan book. There's other books on the Mediterranean diet. There's a couple of 3 areas up there that you might not have heard about. One is Vilcabamba in Ecuador. Has anyone been there? That's an area known for longevity. It was really popular in the early 70s and prior as an area that was known for longevity. You don't hear about it much anymore, but it's still there. And they still eat lots of vegetables there, and we'll talk about other foods that they're eating. And then we have, in the former Soviet Union, an area called Abkhazia. Has anyone been to Abkhazia? You have? Yes? Oh, and what was it like? Nope. You? Anyone? Okay, so Abkhazia, one of the things that I think is fascinating about Abkhazia is that they eat salad and cornmeal porridge for breakfast. Salad for breakfast. Yeah, when I learned about this, I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I remember one day overbuying foods vegetables at the farmer's market. And I thought, how am I going to eat all of this stuff? And then I kind of put 2 and 2 together. Oh, in Abkhazia, they're eating vegetables for breakfast. So that was eye-opening to me, and I started just eating all of that produce for breakfast as well. And we were able to get through that produce. Now when I have leftovers, if I make a lot of vegetables, I don't think anything of just having them for breakfast or as part of a snack. And reading this book just opened my eyes to that here's another culture. We don't think in our country of eating salad for breakfast, but that's what they do there. A cornmeal porridge, in other countries they call basically grain mush porridge. We refer to it here, oatmeal is kind of our porridge, but we don't really use that word porridge so much. But in other countries, they have other grains that they use as a porridge. In China, they have a porridge that's called jus, and jus is made from millet, so it's a millet porridge. So different countries have different porridges. Ours is oatmeal, and oatmeal is really good for us, but there's other options that are out there that we might not think about. And then the third country that's written up in this book is Hunza, which is in northern Pakistan. Has anyone been to Hunza? Has anyone heard of Hunza? Yeah, you have heard of Hunza. Oh, and where'd you hear about it? Because of an area known for longevity, yes. So Hunza and Vilcabamba and Abkhazia were written up in this book, Healthy at 100. This is a recent book, but when you read it, you learn about there was a doctor from our area, Dr. Alexander Leaf. He just passed away a few years back. He lived until his 90s in Concord, Mass. And back in the early 70s, National Geographic, like they're sending Dan Buettner now, they sent Dr. Leaf to these areas that were known for longevity to observe what are they eating, what are they doing, is it true they're living such long lives? And I'll tell you in a little bit what they discovered, because people were saying that they were, one guy in Russia, over 160 years old. Yes, yeah, he was, yes. So there was some age inflation going on. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Yes, yeah. But he was a great doctor. I mean, he was an MD, a real doctor, worked at Harvard. So we'll chat more about the age inflation just a little bit. So let's talk about Abkhazia, Vilcabamba, and Hunza. Again, these areas that were known in the early 70s and prior, written up, that's another good read, Healthy at 100. So these areas are known for eating very little meat. They're mostly plant eaters. They lean toward vegetarianism. Now, one of the things that you see in these areas as well is low salt consumption. You don't see a lot of processed food, especially in the early 70s and prior. You didn't see obesity, 0% obesity at that point. It's changed since then, but people still eat the traditional ways back there, but there was no obesity when Dr. Leaf went out that way. Basically, they weren't eating a lot of calories when you compare it with the American way of eating, and it was a low-fat, high-carb diet, but the carbs weren't jelly beans and candy. What kind of carbs do you think they were eating? Beans, whole grains, fruits and vegetables. That's where they're getting their carbohydrates. And then the protein is lower in these areas, lower than the American diet. And that's just a conflict that in my own mind I'm still trying to resolve, because protein can help you maintain your lean muscle mass, your muscles, and your strength if you eat enough as we get older. But the World Health Organization, and when you look at these areas of longevity, they eat less than we do. But there is research out of our country that eating more protein than they eat in these cultures can help you to live longer. So it's sort of tough to strike this balance. When I look at what the studies in our country say, and I look at these areas of longevity, what I think is really important to get back to mostly the most natural diet we can get, not eating a lot of processed foods. We don't want to eat stuff that has a long list of ingredients. We want to eat foods that don't have a label. Fruits, vegetables. When you buy rice, it's just rice, one ingredient food. You buy oatmeal. Not the oatmeal that says, brown sugar and banana oatmeal when they're drying stuff and they're adding chemicals. So a real natural diet, and then moving our bodies, really, really helpful. But the protein, I just see that in my mind, it's still up for debate, because we say high protein, and then these cultures, people are doing really well. But they're moving a lot more in these cultures of longevity. That's what's really important. The movement really is key. All right, let's talk about longevity factor number 1. Eat lots of vegetables, and when steaming or boiling, consider drinking the water. So if you have one of those steamers that fans out, any of you have that? Or you might have the steamer pots where they fit into one another, or you might have a steam oven. So we bought a steam oven over the last couple of years, and I'm not crazy about it because I like to have that reserve of water. And in the steam oven, it goes through tubing to sit in a little basin, and then I haven't drank it that way. So my husband prefers that oven. I still like the traditional way of 2 pots steaming, so I can save that water. That water has a lot of nutrients in it. When you cook vegetables, some of the vitamins and nutrients come out into the water. You don't lose everything, but some, does go into the water. So if you drink the water, you get those nutrients. And my favorite is zucchini. When I steam zucchini to drink the water, sometimes my husband forgets, he throws the water out. No, I want that water. And it's very soothing. I like to drink it as a tea. You could use it as a broth, or you can save it the next day and reheat it as a broth or the base for another type of soup. So just something to think about. And the other thing that I notice in these areas of longevity is that the vegetables are often eaten raw, or they're just cooked in a little bit of water. And a lot of people ask me, what's better, raw or cooked? There's definitely evidence out there that some cooked vegetables, tomatoes are considered a fruit, but when you cook tomatoes, the lycopene in them becomes more available, and lycopene is a cancer fighter. However, in these areas of longevity, they're eating a lot of raw vegetables, so I think it's good to get a balance of both. What's an easy way to get raw vegetables in? Salad, yeah. More salad. And how do we make more salad more interesting? How do we make salad interesting? Different kind of vegetables, exactly. Seeds in there, nuts and seeds. Yeah, different kinds of greens. What about different kinds of dressings? Being open to different kinds of dressings to just wake up the flavor in your salad. There's a new restaurant that's growing in popularity, Sweet Green. Have you heard of it? They just opened one in Legacy Place and one in Linden Square in Wellesley. And what I like about Sweet Green, they're just really big on salads, a lot of salads, and they just make their salads really tasty. So if you happen to be over around Dedham, and you might want to go to Legacy Place, and they're reasonably priced too, which is really nice. So more salad in the diet, and there's a lot of fad diets that are around now, but what all of the diets that are out there seem to agree on is that we should eat vegetables. So we definitely should eat, they're so important to our survival and our longevity. Are you getting vegetables at both lunch and dinner? If not, we really want to aim for that, and then we want to think about getting them for snacks too, like veggie sticks and hummus. When I was at the Asian supermarket earlier today, I saw jicama, and I thought, oh, I haven't had that in a while, and that's something you could eat raw. And there was daikon radish when I was at that supermarket, and that's another thing that you can have radishes raw, the daikon radish raw or cooked. Now, that's Pakistan. And Abkhazia is at the very northern area of Pakistan. And I'm sorry, Hunza is at the very northern area of Pakistan. And Hunza is surrounded by 6 mountain ranges. I watched a video where they highlighted Hunza in it recently. And what I learned back in the 50s, there was an optometrist from our country that was watching the show that Art Linkletter was the host. Do you remember Art Linkletter? What was the name of that show? He had one with People Are Funny. Yeah. Kids say the darndest things. Well, this I believe was the People Are Funny one, which was earlier on. And this optometrist, Dr. Alan Bannock, he liked the show. He wrote in, you know, you guys should send someone over to Hunza and tell all your viewers about this area known for longevity. So they sent people to his home to interview him, and they ended up sending him, this optometrist, over to Hunza. And when you read, he actually wrote, there's a whole book about, and I read the book about his experience. And when he first tried to go, they have rock falls. So they have all these mountains, and they have rock falls that block the roads, and they have people that come out there and have to shovel the rocks. And I figured that's only back in the 50s, but I saw a recent video, it still happens, that they have these rock falls and they have to get rid of the rocks to help get people in. Apparently it's very hard to get there. It was an area isolated for a couple of thousands of years, and they developed their own organic farming, and you can see here these terraces that are built right into the hillside. So they're known for these gardened terraces, and that they're organic, and they're known to be a real resourceful group for composting. Everything goes back into the soil. When they became part of Pakistan, at one point they listened to salesmen. They started using non-organic methods, and the crop just really didn't, it needed more water. It just wasn't as good. So they went back, and now they're all organic. The popular Rodale publisher, they publish organic gardening. They heard about Hunza, and they were very impressed with what went on there. And when the organic movement happened here, I believe the roots are really in what they learned about Hunza. And this is all going back to the 50s when this guy, Alan Bannock, went over and visited, and other people were visiting there, and they were just amazed at how healthy these people were, especially in their older years. And one of the things he noticed, the optometrist, when he went there, is that their eyes were very clear, and he didn't see the problems that he saw in people of the same age, seniors in our country. So they seem to have better eyesight. Another thing he noticed is their pristine teeth. And I mentioned earlier, no sugar. So sugar is we know sugar causes cavities, but it really does, because one of the things he learned about there, he learned how they were brushing their teeth. What do you think they were brushing their teeth with? Someone said it. Sticks. And they had great teeth. So here, we have a lot of problems, cavities. Well, it comes from all the sugar. The American diet, we are the highest ranking sugar eating country in the world. We eat the most sugar, and sugar causes cavities. But he noticed great eyesight and great teeth. Now, Dr. Leaf, who I mentioned from Concord, Mass., he also noticed that, wow, these seniors are really healthy. And Leaf went to Abkhazia, Vilcabamba, and Hunza, and they're all hilly areas. And he noticed in these areas the seniors were able to get up and down the hilly terrain with ease. On one of his first trips, he got worried because there was a senior there, and he thought, oh, I don't want them to fall and get a fracture, and they got up the hill faster than him. So it was, really eye-opening to him to see, wow, these people are moving, and it's a different way of thinking than in our country. Now, one of the crops that's popular in Hunza, apricots. And apricots are high in vitamin A. Foods in that orange-yellow color spectrum are high in vitamin A. Remember, he mentioned their eyesight was very good. And vitamin A is associated with good eyesight. Do you remember when you were younger, maybe someone told you, or maybe you told your kids to eat what for good eyesight? Carrots, right? And they are in that orange-yellow color spectrum, and they have vitamin A. Now, in our country, apricots are grown primarily in California from May through September. So you might start seeing them on the shelves in the fresh form, which is nice. Trader Joe's has organic apricots that I really like because there's no sulfur dioxide added, no chemicals added, and they're really yummy. Now, a study of over 50,000 nurses found those with the highest vitamin A intake reduced their risk of developing cataracts by 40%. And I don't mean the supplemental vitamin A. That's actually not good for us. Too much vitamin A can affect your bone health in the supplemental form. But in carrots, in orange-yellow colored foods, where you're fine. So we want to definitely eat lots of vegetables. But anyone snack on apricots? Yeah, so I see some people saying yes. Yeah, so try them. Most of them do have chemicals added to preserve the bright yellow color. When you buy the organic ones, they say Turkish organic apricots at Trader Joe's, they don't have that bright color, but they taste better than the other ones, and they don't have that chemicals. When you open that bag of the other ones, you can smell the chemical a bit, but you can't with the organic ones. Now, 3 servings of fruit a day may lower your risk of age-related macular degeneration. So 3 fruits a day. Now, in Abkhazia, what not only Dr. Leaf noticed, but other physicians that visited there were unusual rates of longevity. People were living to ripe old ages there, and they were mentally healthy and outgoing too. So it wasn't like they were living into older ages, but they saw a lot of dementia. It was the opposite. They saw people really alert and sharp minds. Good hearing and eyesight was observed there. The seniors were very physically fit. And in these areas, also in Okinawa, what people talk about is that there's actually no word in Okinawa for retirement. But in these other areas, people don't retire. They just keep doing and participating however they can until they can't anymore, which is how I want to live my life. I don't want to retire, and reading these books has had a lot of influence on me. I just want to keep doing and like what I'm doing, and if I can't do this, then I'm just going to keep doing something else. And I want to keep contributing, and that might be volunteering, because you're never too old to volunteer, right? So it's something to think about, and nursing homes are a great place to go to volunteer and to be a visitor and to just cheer up other people that are there. And we're going to talk about an interesting volunteer in a little bit. I'll show you in one of the Blue Zone books. That's a picture of Vilcabamba, very scenic, like I mentioned, hilly. They have a big raw foods movement there where people go there. It's very cheap to live off the land there. So you have people from our country reading about how great it is there. And if you are on YouTube at all, you can catch some people living the raw food way, out there, just eating lots of vegetables and fruits and basically living off the land. One of my takeaways from reading the Healthy at 100 book is that there's this popular saying in Vilcabamba: each of us has 2 doctors, the left leg and the right leg, right? So we want to use them, we want to move, and I love that. Just keep moving. Now, the takeaway number 2, longevity factor number 2, is eat vegetables and fruits in season when possible. A lot of the farmers markets are opening now over this weekend, over the next few weeks. You want to make use of the farmers markets. You have Millis, the Tangerini farm. Who's been there? Oh, good, good. A lot of hands going up. That's great. It's an organic farm. They have great produce. I was there in the fall. The apples, I remember, were really great. Trying to think, I bought a lot of things when I was there, and I highly recommend it. And that's so close. That's only about 10 minutes from here, right? Yes.
Farm in Rentham.
Oh, White Bond. I haven't been there. White. It is. Okay, thank you. White Bond Farm. That's another one to visit. Take little field trips. Maybe you can go together. Maybe arrange a bus to some of these places. It's just something to think about doing. Also, around this time of year, for people that are income eligible, they do give out farmers market coupons. You guys aware of that? I don't know if they're distributed through the senior center. That might be a. They will be.
Usually July or August.
And how do people come and they ask?
We only get 25 of them. It's first come, first served.
First come, first served, and that's in July?
It's either July or August.
First come, first served. I would be at the front of that line if you're here. Yeah, that's really nice. Great.
We used them. We had them last year and we couldn't even use them all.
Really? Oh, so you want to use that this year? And how much? I didn't know they differ from year to year.
No, I wasn't working here.
Okay.
I just remember hearing about
Wow, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think it's like $20 or $25, $30, I think, if those of you that have seen them. That's great. You can get a lot of great things. So I would ask about it, around June, June, July, just to see when those are coming out. And I think that's great to use. All right. Longevity factor number 3, consume small amounts of nuts and seeds throughout the day. I like the Emerald brand from the regular supermarkets. They portion control the nuts, which is really helpful. They have almonds, they have walnuts and almonds, and they have just walnuts. They might have cashews now too. I think I've seen them. And then Trader Joe's is my favorite place for nuts. So for you guys, right over to Foxborough, if you can head over there, their nuts, high quality, low price, and there's a lot of turnover with their nuts, so they stay really, really fresh. That's what I've noticed over the years. When you buy your nuts, try to get them raw or dry roasted. When you see them roasted in oil, they tend to use real junky oils, and that can just take away from the health benefits. The Mediterranean region, who's visited Italy or Greece? Oh, a lot of hands going up. And what do you remember about the food? Fabulous. Anything else? Any other comments about the food? Fresh? Very fresh? Yeah, so the Mediterranean region is known for lots of vegetables and fruit, beans, and then you have heard red wine, right? Wine we want to do in moderation, and I find that they tend to, when they talk about Mediterranean diet, they focus on that. But that's one little piece of a lot of other, and they have small portions of it. And they drink it amongst friends. They're not watching Jeopardy alone, slugging down a bottle, right? It's with other people. So think about when you're drinking wine, can it be social? And also, they're eating food. So it's not like it's alcohol alone. As a nutritionist, if someone's looking to improve their health, I never say start drinking wine. I never do. I like to listen to what are they eating and what can I tweak. And I don't add alcohol, because too much alcohol can really affect many organs of the body in a negative way. Too much. And there's sort of a fine line in between moderate and too much. So moderate is a 5-ounce glass of wine, one glass for women a day, 2 for men. That's what's considered moderation. But some research over the last year that's come out says that moderate amount may be too much. So just keep that in mind. There's a compound called Resveratrol and Red Wine. It's also in red grapes. So as your nutritionist, I would say, well, let's try red grapes. If you came to me with heart disease, I'd look at everything you're eating, how you're moving, what your stress level is, and I would have a food first approach. So red grapes, are you guys eating red grapes? Yeah, there's another grape I read about recently, blue grapes from Israel, and they apparently have a very high level of antioxidants. But red grapes have resveratrol, and that's one of the compounds that you'll find in the red wine. So there are 16 countries that border the Mediterranean Sea, and they're known for this Mediterranean way. They also move a lot. And when studies were done in the 50s, there was a 7-country study that was done, and that study focused on Greece and then an island off of Italy called Sardinia. And there have been some landmark studies on the Mediterranean way of eating, and one of them is the Predamond Study. And this study I found is really interesting. What they've done in this study is they've taken 3 groups of people. So if we divided the room into 3 groups, the people so this study, let's see if I have a picture of it. I don't. Okay, so this study was done across Spain. And it was people that were at risk for heart disease, but they never had a heart attack. So they had 2 groups follow the Mediterranean diet. So let's say we break you guys into 3 groups. You're going to follow the Mediterranean diet, and I'm going to give you some extra supplemental nuts with your diet. And your diet, you're going to eat the Mediterranean way. So Mediterranean way, beans, nuts and seeds, vegetables, fruit, not too much meat, not too much dairy, some poultry. So this middle group, you're going to eat that way, and I'm going to give you some extra virgin olive oil as well. Some extra omega-3 fats. Oh, wait a minute, you guys are getting the nuts. So you guys are getting the olive oil, sorry. And then you guys over here, I'm going to give you the American type of diet we give when people have heart disease, low-fat diet. Right? That's been changing, but that's been for a while low-fat. What they found is that these 2 groups following the Mediterranean way of eating, whether you had extra nuts and seeds in your diet or whether you had extra virgin olive oil in the diet, they found that you had lower blood pressure, better improved cholesterol, decreased insulin resistance, so you were less at risk for diabetes, decreased inflammation, which sets the stage for diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And they saw a major risk reduction for cardiac events for those who are at risk. So that's all much better than that typical low-fat diet that when I first started working as a dietitian, we were still really pushing that. And we were starting to learn about Mediterranean diet back then in the hospital setting. And I remember being fascinated, like, wow, we can eat fat. And that's after so many years where I wasn't eating a lot of fat. And I remember, oh, peanuts are good for us. Wow, like being fascinated. Now, it's extra virgin olive oil when you buy oil. So you don't want it to just say olive oil. It's extra virgin olive oil that has the health benefits, has the anti-inflammatory properties. This next study I find particularly fascinating. This is the Lionheart study. So this study, they divided into 2 groups. Everyone in the room has had a heart attack. 2 groups. This group, I'm putting you on the Mediterranean diet. This group, you do what you want. Whatever you want, you do what you want. They had to stop the study because the people doing the Mediterranean diet were doing so well that they thought it was unfair that to let the study go on and not let these people know. Because if you have another they might die if they have another heart attack. They wanted everyone to know the benefits. What they saw in this group was a 50 to 70% lower risk of recurrent heart disease. So that's pretty amazing that we're preventing future heart attacks by following the Mediterranean diet. So they had to let everyone else know. Now, the EPIC study on the elderly in Greece found that a higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet was associated with lower overall mortality and specifically lower death rates from cancer and heart disease. Now, another study that was reported in the Archives of Neurology, this found that those eating the Mediterranean diet were 38% less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So what were they eating? They were eating higher intakes of salad dressing, which means more salad. By salad dressing, I doubt in the study they were going to buy, Ken's or, some local brand. Not local, but some national brand. When you buy salad dressing, most of them now have a lot of additives. And even the more natural ones have xanthan gum added. And I'm just not crazy about these additives that our grandparents weren't eating, but now they're in our food supply. So the best thing to do is to make your own. And that lonely section of the library, and Rosemary, you're at the library, right? Who works at the library? Okay, you guys work at the library. So that lonely section called the cookbook section, if we all...
The cookbook section is terrific at
Is
the
it,
library.
right? So if we went there now, could we possibly find a book that would help us to learn how to make some salad dressings?
Probably, but if not, I will have them order one.
Oh, but a lot of books will have that. It might not be a salad dressing book,
Yeah.
but a lot of healthy books that are there, you can find salad dressing recipes.
At the library, I have a great cookbook.
Yeah, so that's something fun to do. I call it my library stroll when I go to the library without anything in mind, just to go and see what's there and just look down the aisles, and you might find something that interests you. But yeah, look for that lonely section.
Healthy section eating for cookbooks too. It's broken up
Oh,
according to what the cookbooks are.
wow. You guys,
Vegetarian.
yeah, very nice.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Nice. And Robin?
I just wanted to say, when I've looked for dressings with olive oil in the store, very hard to find. It's
Yes.
mostly soybean oil.
Yeah, mostly soybean oil.
Or a blend.
Yeah, we don't know how it's extracted. A lot of times you'll see it's a soybean and or cottonseed oil. It's like whatever they can find. That's cheap.
And it makes a difference, I think.
It does, yeah. So you don't really see the extra virgin a lot. You'll see it a little bit, but I keep seeing these additives that I just don't agree with. So you're best to do your extra virgin olive oil, some nice vinegar with that, and then some spices. An Italian seasoning can, make it really easy to just put the three together. Now, longevity factor number 4 is limit your red meat consumption. So more beans and more fish. Meat eaters are likely to weigh more, consume more soda, desserts, and refined grains. So there's been studies on this, which is interesting. They find they tend to have earlier mortality, which means they die sooner. So if we want to live a long life, we can eat more plant-based. I'm not saying you have to become a vegetarian, but if you're eating a lot of red meat, let's try to cut back. Let's have more fish, more bean-based meals. Sometimes people do things like they call Mondays meatless Mondays, and that's a day where they just don't eat animal food and they eat more beans in the diet. So it's just a different way of thinking. Now, according to the Adventist Health Study number 2, because there is an Adventist Health Study 1, and this comes out of Loma Linda University Medical Center, and I'll show pictures because I went out there to see it. They found that vegetarians eating fish showed a substantial decrease in risk for colorectal cancer. So eating a plant-based diet with some fish may be particularly helpful. So that's something to think about. So a little more about red meat. It's associated with cancer, heart disease, and earlier mortality. Now, in 2012, an interesting study came out of Harvard, and it found that one daily serving of unprocessed red meat, so that would be like if you cooked a steak, and the size was about a deck of cards, that was associated with the 13% increased risk of mortality. A one daily serving of processed meat, so that would be like a hot dog or a couple of slices of bacon, was associated with a 20% increased risk for mortality. Isn't that kind of interesting? So I know I see that the camera's on, but I've been an advocate at one of the school districts to get rid of hot dogs on the menu, knowing that it's not your town, but I think that, and I don't know actually, I haven't checked the school lunch menus, but I don't think our kids should be eating this stuff if we know that it shortens the lifespan. So hot dogs, I don't think it's something that should be a regular staple in the diet. If the summer comes, opening day of the Red Sox, if once in a while we work that in, then so be it. And I think life is about enjoying life. I think you can build in some indulgences here and there. But when a hot dog becomes a regular kind of thing, that's not good for us. So just something to consider. All right. Number 5 is decrease processed food consumption. When you're craving something sweet, try fruit. It's such a good strategy that we forget about. And I like clementines, how sweet they are, that if I have a sweet craving, you eat a clementine, it can really just get rid of that craving. And it can feel really good. We tend to feel good after we eat fruit. But after we eat something like this, we feel what? How do we feel? Just kind of lousy, not so good. But fruit, you kind of eat that and move on. And it's interesting when people eat sweets, they tend to feel yucky. Sometimes there's that feeling of guilt thrown in, and they don't know if they feel yucky because they feel guilty. But I think you just feel yucky because you feel yucky. The food makes you feel yucky, but then other people have guilt thrown in. So it's like that little combination, and you blame it on, oh, I was bad, and you feel, oh, but I think you just feel, oh, and then the guilt is thrown on top of it. Does that make sense? That's kind of what I observed with junky foods. So we want to think about what are we eating that's junky, and what can we replace it with? And it's not saying never eat anything junky, but think about overall the course of your day and the course of your week. How many sweets are you eating? And how do your blood sugars look? If your blood sugars don't look so good and you're eating sweets throughout the week, we probably have to cut back those sweets. And just find something else that's enjoyable to eat. And it's out there, and it might mean cooking and experimenting a little bit more to really enjoy what you're eating. I really enjoy my oatmeal with my apple and peanut butter. That's something I just really enjoy. And that could be a 3 o'clock snack rather than something sweet or just a few crackers. You know, you're getting whole grains with oatmeal, and with peanut butter you're getting a healthy fat and you're getting some protein in there. And then with apples or with strawberries or with blueberries, you're getting apples we spoke about last week. They may help with memory, and strawberries and blueberries may help with memory, particularly short-term memory. So just something to keep in mind. Now, when we think about processed foods, bread is so processed. So we want to think about more natural breads. A nice brand is Ezekiel bread. Another nice one is Matthew's bread. These are better breads that don't have a long list of lots of junky additives in them. And when we think of whole grains, here's a whole wheat pasta, and we look at the ingredient list, and it's one ingredient, durum whole wheat flour. So it's great to look for one ingredient foods, that if it is a processed food, that it doesn't have a lot of junk added to it. Now, longevity factor number 6 is stay active and move your body regularly. What are you doing for activity? Can you share? Walking. I hear a lot of walking. Great. I hear yoga. Gardening. Yes. Great. What was that? Zumba, nice. Water aerobics. Claudette, can you share what you're doing? I think it's fascinating.
It's very, unfortunately, you have to have equipment. You wear a belt or it's a vest. I do deep water walking, which means I get in a pool where it's 8 feet deep. But the belt keeps me up. You walk because your whole body is submerged, until you can just about keep going to the shallow end, until you can just about feel your toes touching bottom, then turn around to stay in the deep end.
That's because you're walking against resistance, that's really good. Very interesting, yeah. So there's lots of different activities going on here, and the good news is that we can just start. If we're not moving, we can start moving. It's a great day out there. Just take a stroll. Can you take a stroll somewhere? If the sidewalks aren't great near your house, if it's dangerous, where can you park? Where there are sidewalks. That's a way to think about it so that we can get out there more. Yoga is really, really great. I just saw a video online of a woman in her 100s still teaching yoga. It's pretty amazing. A few weeks back, I met a great gentleman caster at the let's see, that was at the North Attleboro Senior Center, and he does yoga. And so many people walk for their exercise or their physical activity, and that's great. One of the studies I read over the last few months, it studied people who were walking and then stopped walking, and they actually saw that their muscle mass decreased when they stopped the walking. So walking helps you to maintain your lean tissue mass, your muscles when you walk. We mentioned gardening. I heard someone mention Beth, right? No, Ellen. Yes, Ellen mentioned gardening. That's such a great activity because when we weed and you pull stuff out, you're using your strength. If you're digging at all, you're using your strength. So gardening is a really great activity to do to help keep your strength. And then dancing. We heard Zumba. Is anyone doing line dance or square dance? I know that's popular in some of the other senior centers.
They have the line dancing here.
They do have the line dancing here. Okay. All right. So, and what was that?
It just started.
Just started. Okay. That's people really enjoy that. So that's something to think about. And then connecting with nature is something really helpful to do. So if you can take walks that are in the woods, and I know there's great hikes all around our state, but do you have any local that any of you hiking in the woods at all? Walking in the woods? Yes?
Gilbert Hills State Forest in Foxborough.
Okay, so there's one to go to that's very close by. Any of you go to the Cape for the summer? Okay, so I see some hands going up. On the Cape, and also just around Massachusetts in general, the Audubon Society has some really good trail systems to go visit, some reservations that are really nice.
Yeah, Tricia, there is Stony Brook.
Oh, yeah.
In Norfolk, and any senior can go there. You don't have to be a member.
Oh, nice.
It's a Norfolk senior.
Okay, that's Stony Brook Reservation. Stony Brook, so that's something to think about. And maybe you go together. You don't, go.
Have a trip
Oh, really?
coming up
Oh, good.
at some point.
Perfect. All right. So that's a great trip to go on. Will it be a tour like someone will talk about? Oh, those are really nice. Yeah. So that's something to keep your eyes open for. And then once you go once on the tour, then you're more familiar to go back there on your own. I want to talk about some interesting seniors. So this is Goldie Mickelson. She just passed away over the last few years. She lived to 113. So she's recently the oldest living person in the United States. And she went to Clark University. There's a big write-up on her at Clark. I got permission of them to post this picture. And one of the things that she said in the past was, I was a great walker, 4 or 5 miles every morning, weather permitting. I never used a car if I could walk. One of the great joys of life was when I sold my car. She never smoked or drank, but admitted to being a chocolate lover. Isn't that nice? And there she is. Guess who this is? Does anyone know? No? Good guess? This is the oldest living person ever, Jean Calment of France. How old do you think she lived to? Oldest documented person.
114.
Good guess. Higher. Higher. 122. So remember that I said there was age inflation with when Dr. Leaf was visiting these areas. People were saying they were 130. At the time, someone was claiming he was in the 160s. And this work started to be questioned that, these, could people really be living that long? And when they started looking at records, they realized that people were inflating their ages because some people were like older than their mother. Like it didn't, you know what I mean? It didn't work out, So they found out people were inflating their ages. And unfortunately, Dr. Leaf's work, it got discredited from the standpoint of the people were lying about their ages. However, he did notice that seniors were really healthy there and they were living to ripe old ages. It just wasn't 130, 120, 160, but they were really healthy. So people, that longevity, there wasn't a renewed interest to really, Dan Buettner started traveling around but no one really knows there were blue zones back in the early 70s and prior that were written up in National Geographic. Everyone knows of this, but they don't know of Vilcabamba, Abkhazia, and Hunza, which, you know, and those areas still exist. It's just, you know, pretty fascinating. So we're going to talk more about some of the blue zones in a little bit. Let's talk about some of the recent oldest living people. This is Masao Okawa of Japan. She lived to 117. Her secret, watch out for one's health. Her favorite meal, mackerel sushi. She's the 5th verified person to reach 117 and the oldest verified person ever in Japan. This is Geraldine Taylor. She was from the US. She's another recent world's oldest person. Here are some quotes from her friends and family. Geraldine is wise, strong-willed woman. This is when she was still living, what they said about her. She uses humor to make points, doesn't complain, gives good advice, has remained positive throughout her life. This is definitely a longevity factor that I see from reading about people that live long lives, being more positive. And I think it's something we can make a shift to be more positive. I don't think you're born one way. I think you can change. Her number one rule, treat people how you want to be treated. Another recent oldest living person from Brooklyn, New York, lived to 116. This is Susanna Mushat Jones, attributes her longevity to not smoking, not drinking, and sleep. Interesting. This is Bessie Cooper of Georgia. She lived till 116, the 10th oldest person ever. One of the things that she said is that she minds her own business and doesn't eat junk food. And what her son said about her, she just was never a worrier, just really didn't worry. And there's a popular Okinawan expression, don't worry, it'll all work out. Don't worry, it'll work out. Does that sound familiar? Anyone, parents use that expression or grandparents? No? Okay. All right, a recent oldest living person from Italy, Emma Morano, 117 years old. What I loved about what she said, her secret of longevity, and this is when they interviewed her in her, you know, being over 110, she thinks positively about the future. Isn't that amazing? To keep thinking positively. Yeah, so, you know, very special person. This is another special person, Violet Brown of Jamaica. She was another recent oldest living person, lived to 117. She liked fish, mutton, and sometimes a cow foot. Hey, why not? She didn't eat pork or chicken. She liked sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, breadfruit, and fruit, especially oranges and mangoes, and she was a devout Christian. Nabi Tajima is from Japan, born August 4th, 1900. So what she enjoyed, mackerel sushi and ramen noodles. So mackerel sushi seems to be popular among these centenarians. Now, the current oldest living person is Chio Miyaku from Japan, 117. She was born May 2nd. She had a birthday this month, 1901. Her secret to longevity, eels. Remember the eels I was telling you about? Eels and drinking rice wine. Now, this is on Wilkipedia, and I know Wilkipedia isn't the greatest source of information, but I've double-checked this with other sources. I've been following this since 2010. I'm really fascinated, yeah. I'm fascinated by the world's oldest living people. So it's 8 years that I've been following, and I get really excited because right now we have Chiyo Moyaku, and she's 117. Now, there's only 2 people ever documented that reached 118 or older. So I have this thing, and I get very upset when they pass away because I want them to get to their 118th birthday. And there's been people let's see, it was, so Emma, I showed you the picture of Emma. She made it to 117, 137 days. And Nabi Tajima, she got really close. She just passed away. I was upset in April when I found out because she only had to go till August to make it to 118, and I really wanted her to make it. So I'm waiting for the next person to get it. That's going to be really big for someone else to reach 118. So it looks like, look at all of these people made it to 117. right? And another thing that, and I'm sorry guys, but I've shown this a lot, and something that someone pointed out to me is, wow, it's kind of interesting that a lot of the recent oldest living people were women. There's some men as well, but the last few have been, when I've been following, have been women. And since I've been following this list, Jeremiah Kimura, and he died in 2013. So I mentioned I've been following since 2010. So since 2010, it's been women. So it's kind of, been pretty interesting. All right, longevity factor number 7, stay connected to family and friends. Really important. If you are isolated and there's no family or friends around, then that's when it's important to make new ones, make new connections. When I came back from California, I was speaking at a conference out in, back in, I think it was April, and yeah, in early April. On my way back, I was sitting next to a lovely lady, and we got to chatting the whole time, and she must have been in her 70s. And what was so fascinating about her, she just bought a place out in San Francisco. She's bi-coastal. She's a filmmaker. She just made a recent film on ticks out on the Cape. She's a fascinating lady. And one of the things that stood out in my mind about her, she said, yeah, I'm moving out to San Francisco and I need to join some clubs so I can lay down roots there. And what does that mean? Join clubs to do what? To meet people. So we can all do that. And she just had a very healthy attitude, like, this is what I want to do. I like San Francisco and I like Boston. Why not live in both areas? Why not, right? And she knew to make roots, to make friends, I have to join clubs. And this, what you're all doing today, you're all here. Coming senior centers are wonderful because there's so many activities. You have the tour. I can't wait till I can be a member because there's so many great things that go on, all the trips. I think it's fascinating. And I think a lot of people don't realize all the wonderful opportunities that go on if they've never been to a senior center. Another great way to connect with people is the volunteering. So this is Marge Jetton. I'm going to pass this around. I asked for permission, and I don't have permission to have the picture on the screen, and I want that. I love this picture. So hopefully I'll get that permission soon. But this is Marge Jetton. She's lifting weights. I'm going to pass the book around. Pretty heavy weights. That's not like a one pound weight. I think those might be 5-pounders. So Dan Buettner went out to Loma Linda, California, and she agreed to be interviewed by him if he would go around with her that day. And he drove around with her in her Cadillac. She was 100, I think it says at the time, she was 100 when he visited, and still driving around. One of her volunteer activities that she told him, in her words, she wanted to go to the senior center to drop off magazines for the old folks. She was 100 saying that. She's probably older than all the people there. Isn't that funny? But yeah, so, she drove around in the Cadillac. That was one of her stops. She was volunteering for lots of places. I'm going to pass that around. And she was still lifting weights. Tufts University has shown in their research that people in their 90s can still gain strength and flexibility in your 90s. And she's a good example. You'll see her with her weights there. She was also riding, he followed her throughout the day, and when he met with her, she was riding a stationary bike in the morning. And then she wanted him to get on that bike. He needed his exercise, just kind of funny. So she had when you read about her in the book, just a real great attitude. I have one of her quotes coming up too. We'll get to that. In Okinawa, one of the things I found fascinating about what they do there is they have these groups called mois. And a moe is a group of people that get together for financial and social support. If we have 40 people in here and we belong to the senior center moe, we meet monthly and everyone brings in $10. That's $400. I get it this month. And then next month, Lady Di will get the money. right? You'll get 400, and then Charles will get that money the following month, and then it'll go to Robin, and then it'll go around till I get it, 40 months from now. So that's what they do there. Now, one of the groups I read about was a group of guys that went to kindergarten together, and they were in their 80s. They were still getting together. And again, it's a social club, but also financial support. In our country, what do we do that's for social and financial support? Do we gather at all for that? We do. Can you think of where we might gather? Social, think about a special time for people in their lives. What are some milestones? People, weddings, wedding showers and baby showers. Think of a wedding shower. People get together, they're supporting that couple, they're getting together socially, but they bring them gifts to help them in their new marriage. When they have a baby shower, same kind of thing. And then we have clubs like the Rotary Club and other clubs where people get together and it's social, but they're also donating their time and experience. So that's how we can think of mois, but they're very popular in Okinawa. I've been talking about these for a while now in our country, and people have mentioned to me like, oh yeah, my mom was part of something I never quite understood, but they got together and they supported each other financially, but it was kind of a club. So I think this tradition is here in our country, just not as strong as Okinawa. Longevity factor number 8, aim to be happy and cheerful. When feeling down, help other people. In our country, we feel down, go to the doctor's office, and what do? There's a pill, they give pills for everything, rather than what's the root of the problem. The root might be maybe you're lonely, and maybe we need to make connections. Maybe volunteering can make us feel better. Random acts of kindness are really nice. Maybe making or cooking something for someone, offering to take someone on a medical visit, paying for someone's coffee or tea. And then movement can make us feel good. Sometimes we feel, I'm too tired to exercise. I don't have energy. Exercise gives you energy. So it's a different way to think about moving. That can help to energize you. Research has shown that as long as they're in fairly good health, 70-year-olds throughout the world are on average as happy and mentally healthy as 20-year-olds. Isn't that nice? I don't know about the rest of us in between, but 70 seems to be really good, 70s and above. But just something nice to think about, because our culture is so youth-focused. But there's a whole other world out there for as we age and really living a good life and experiencing great things and feeling good. Having a purpose is very helpful for being happy and cheerful and for longevity. A purpose may help to protect cognition and help you live longer. A purpose might be what I've read in, where's the Blue Zones book is going around. So I read in Costa Rica about a man that buys bread for the family. Another man that makes soup every week for the family. Castor, who is a senior, 95, over in North Attleboro, having a birthday in June, going to be 96. He still cooks for his daughter. I bet that I need to ask him about that. I bet that that's something that gives him purpose, still cooking for his daughter. So think about what gives you purpose. And maybe it's helping family. Maybe you're wondering, what is purpose? It's never too late to have a purpose. Maybe you start volunteering and that's your purpose, right? So having a purpose can help us to live longer. And ways to think about it, what are gifts that you might have? Maybe you like to teach people. Maybe you can teach some kind of class here. There's a great, in Palmer, at their senior center, there's Stacia, who's a senior, and she teaches the Tai Chi there, which I think is lovely. You have Bucky here that helps to organize the video workouts, right? Bucky? Does anyone exercise with Bucky? Yeah, I want to meet Bucky. Tell him that. I told Christine, I want to have a chat with him. I'm fascinated. I think it's great. Visiting other people can help give you purpose. Watching kids or grandkids checking in on other people, well visits. Just listening to other people is really helpful. Helping others, lending a hand. I want to share with you that there are some oldest female bodybuilders. Ernestine Shepard is now 81. And now the picture I have up there, that's Wilma Connor. She won in 2012 at age 77, oldest female bodybuilder. And you can see that strength, that you can build and maintain your strength. We just have to use our muscles. Ernestine Shepard is now 81. She won in 2011 and 12. She's on all the news shows. You might have seen her being interviewed. Pretty fascinating. Longevity factor number 9, minimize your exposure to chemicals. So the Seventh-day Adventists out of California, they avoid coffee, alcohol, and cigarettes. It's a religion. The Seventh-day Adventists are a religion. There's a large denomination in Loma Linda, California. So Loma Linda is known for longevity because they have so many Seventh-day Adventists living there. I'll show you some pictures from when I went to visit. I'm reading a book now about the Kellogg's brothers, and they were Seventh-day Adventists, and it's interesting to see the impact on their lifestyles. So the Seventh-day Adventist religion promotes healthy living, vegetarian lifestyle. They promote taking a sanctuary time on Saturdays. You shut the cell phones off. You spend time with other people on those days. Potlucks are really popular on Saturdays amongst Seventh-day Adventists. And then I stayed at the Loma Linda Inn, and I remember there was a sign there that not all of the hotel services were available on Saturdays because they wanted to honor the people that work there that are Seventh-day Adventists. So think about, what are the cleaners that you're using? What are you putting on your skin? It's a good idea to get used to using more natural products. When you clean, open a window. That's a great way to get some fresh air in so the chemicals aren't staying in your home. Now, in Loma Linda, you have the Loma Linda University and the Loma Linda Medical Center, which are in the same vicinity, and anyone can work there. But these institutions were set up by the Seventh-day Adventists, and some really fascinating studies have come out of there. I did a tour of the medical center and learned a lot about it. One of the studies, this particular study out of that university, found that we can live a decade longer by eating a plant-based diet that can add 2 years to your life with small amounts of dairy or fish. Not smoking can add 2 years to your life. Maintaining a medium body weight, not too light, not too heavy, that can add 2 years to your life. Eating a handful of nuts 4 to 5 times a week can add 2 years to your life, and doing regular physical activity can add 2 years to your life. That's fascinating. Decade longer by just practicing healthy habits. So, whoa, that's shocking. That's a little too close, but that's me excited. I was so excited that I made it to a longevity zone. I was thrilled. I'm in a blue zone. That's the Drayson Center, where lots of people work out and get their exercise. I saw people of all ages there. And then this was Loma Linda Inn. That's Flat Stanley. That's where I stayed. And this is a picture on the grounds of the University Medical Center. And this is a lovely woman that gave a tour there. So I had a tour of the hospital and learned more about the area. We visited the pharmacy. I learned more about the pharmacy. I learned more about the microbiome, which is, the microbiome refers to the genes of the ecosystem of microorganisms that are in your body, particularly in your intestines. One of the fascinating things I learned out there is they now have, I'm sorry for people out in the TV world, they have poop pills. So one of the things they're doing now, some of you know about this, is that they give people poop pills. So when some people, if it's either you have an operation where they're removing a lot of your intestines, or you take a poop pill where you're getting some healthy bacteria from someone else's poop, you might want to do the poop pill and not have to have that operation. So they're doing this now. It's pretty fascinating stuff. But they have to keep the poop pills separate from everything else. I learned that too. So kind of interesting stuff. So yeah, I mean, yeah, so, you know, it's fascinating what we're learning, but healthy bacteria, healthy intestines, really important to have that. And a healthy diet over your lifetime can help to support really good intestinal health. And it's never too late to change. We are what we eat. This is Dr. Hans Deal. We were laughing and so happy because it's such a small world that I did a cooking demo in Needham at one point for a program called Chips. And that's his program. Wow. So it was like, whoa, you know, we were like long lost relatives, so happy to, you know, to get a chance to chat. What I loved about his seminar, it was at the church that's on the property of the university and medical center. He brought God into his lecture. And I haven't seen that before. I thought that was fascinating to be talking about nutrition, and then he kept bringing God into it. It was lovely. It was really interesting to see, and he had a huge following of people that are going to his lectures there. So he promotes a vegetarian lifestyle. This is Pete. He is the manager of Loma Linda Inn. I got to know him. He shared so much about their religion and their way of life. When he sent me off with a nice little trail mix that he makes for the employees there. Isn't that nice? Yeah, it was really, really special. I visited the senior center out there, and when I read about long life as well, living long, healthy lives, music, song, and dance. That's why I asked you, what are you doing for dance? Music. They have a ukulele program there. And I was at one of the senior centers out here. Do you guys do ukulele? That might be something at some point. You do ukulele? You can play it. Oh, very nice. It's very big out in California. And one of the recent senior centers here, they were doing ukulele. I'm trying to think. It'll come to mind. Another center I was in, Claudette, we were in Foxborough. That's where you and I met. Right before my program out in Foxborough, they had a lovely guy playing the piano and singing, and it was a sing-along, and he had a lot of people in there. Yes, yeah, very well attended. So song and dance and music really can help us to live long, rich, full lives. Other things about the senior center, I remember I sat down with two ladies, and they had lived in Hawaii, and they moved over to Loma Linda, California. They didn't look like 80s at all. I was so shocked. I would say maybe 50s, 60s, and they were in their 80s. And they just shared with me when I asked them, why do people around Loma Linda live so long? And I asked lots of people that I met. I also went to a retirement home there. And I kept asking this question, people that I met at that seminar, why do people live long lives here? What do you think they told me? Two things. What do you think? Two things, two reasons that they said people live long lives in Loma Linda. Good guess? Keep going. Nope. What are we doing here mostly? What am I talking about? Diet. They said diet and no. No. You're onto it. Community life. What's big in their community? Their religion. So they all pointed to diet and spirituality. Yeah, it was really fascinating that was a common theme when I asked different people. So it's not saying you have to be of one religion. All these different areas that we talk about across the world, it's all different religions, but there's something to spirituality that can help us to live long lives. Now, this is that little quote from Marge Jetton. The book is probably still going around. When Dan Buettner asked her, when her husband had passed away a few years before, And, you know, how did you handle that? And one of the things she said is that when I found that when you are depressed, that's when you do something for someone else. And look at her still dropping off those magazines, right? Still doing. Now, actually, I have up there, she was volunteering at 103 years of age for 7 organizations. 7, can you imagine? And still driving that Cadillac. That's pretty awesome. So number 10 is embrace spirituality. Just a couple of other things about the Seventh-day Adventists. One of the things they do on Saturdays, and Pete, the hotel manager, mentioned it's important to get out and be with nature. Get out. Something with the mountains they find in that religion can be very soothing, very spiritual. And it's something, again, we can connect, we can do gardening that we talked about, we can go on this tour that's coming up into the woods. Connecting with nature seems to be a really great thing to do. Now in Okinawa, the Okinawan gods and ancestors play a role in their spirituality. They pray to their ancestors. And when I started learning about them, it's probably been about around 2010 is when I got really interested in all this stuff. So around that time, I started learning. I thought, oh, that's interesting, because you don't hear people talk about that here, them praying to ancestors, but they do that there. And it can make people feel more comforted when people pass on in their lives, that you can still talk to them. They're not really gone. And that's one facet of their religion that I found pretty fascinating. Another thing fascinating about Okinawan religion is that the women are the spiritual leaders. Another fascinating thing I found out about Okinawans, when they get sick, they see 2 people. They see, like our medicine here, they see a doctor, but then they also see a spiritual healer. They call them shamans. I think that's, you know, pretty interesting. What are the traits of Okinawan elders? Oh, we're going a little bit over time. Are you okay if we go about another 5 minutes? Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. I got so excited. All right. So one of the things they notice, well, many of the things they notice about the Okinawan elders, and there's an Okinawan Centenarian study where they study centenarians in Okinawa, but also seniors. Okinawa is known for a high population of centenarians, people over 100 years of age. What do they find with Okinawan elders? They have healthy arteries. They have a low risk for heart disease, stroke, and many cancers. Strong bones and sharp minds, slim bodies, and low body fat. Natural menopause, low stress levels, excellent psycho-spiritual health, and high levels of activity. They're moving. There was a video I saw online of a woman in her 90s climbing a fruit tree in Okinawa. In her 90s. That's awesome, right? I'd be afraid now, but I'd love to be able to do it now and in my 90s. So what are the lifestyle factors that are supporting all of those healthy traits? What they eat, getting regular exercise, moderate alcohol, no smoking, a stress minimizing outlook, and that combined Eastern-Western healthcare that I spoke about. They have this thing called harahachi-bu, where they only eat till they're 80% full, so they leave a little room in the belly. Another thing I found fascinating about them is they have this custom called the ayakaru. And ayakaru is when you touch an elder and you take on their good health, their good luck, and longevity. Now, some people have allowed me to do this to them. If anyone's willing, if you feel you've lived a very long, happy, healthy life, I'll touch your arm and hopefully I'll take that on. If we have any volunteers, I've had them, so I'm excited. I've done this ayakaru many times now. I think it's awesome. 97 is also a big year there for celebrations when people turn 97. Let me show you some of the Okinawan power foods. So this is the emo. It's a purple, get my little emo out, purple potato. When you cut it beforehand, whoa, I'm sorry,
okay.
That went to you, I'm so sorry. All right, let me break it. Isn't that cool? Sometimes it's even more vibrant than that. If you cut it beforehand, it can lose the color quickly. But that's the emo, and again, I'm sorry about that. So this is one of the staple foods. In our country, potatoes are getting a bad rap lately because of the media, but potatoes are very healthy for us. Now, another food, let me see which one I have up there, is the bitter melon. So this is the bitter melon. This is very popular. You'll see the Asian supermarkets. It's very bitter. It's not a fruit. They eat it more like a vegetable. So, I wanted to come on you again, Lady Di. All right. All right. So I'm going to show you, when I open it, what they do is they eat the green part, they scoop out the middle, and they'll stir fry this. The popular dish is they stir fry it with eggs. I have Vietnamese friends that make a really nice dipping sauce. So when you have this with their dipping sauce, it's really yummy. I've tried to make it on my own, and I'm still trying to like it on my own. It's like when other people make it, it tastes better than when I make it. And I'm still trying, but this is important. Some of the health properties may lower blood sugar, may protect against cancer. Yeah, it's pretty popular. I saw it on the Today Show a few years ago, and I thought, oh, it's going to really take off here. It hasn't taken off yet, but it, you know.
Still bitter when you cook it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's still bitter. Okay. All right, let me. Here. So burdock root. When my father-in-law saw this in my refrigerator, he said, your refrigerator looks like a garden, because this was snaked around in there. So this is burdock root, and you can put this, so you would take the skin off, then you can soak it in vinegar so it doesn't turn color. I've used this in soups before. What's nice about burdock root is that it doesn't have a lot of calories, and it may have anti-inflammatory properties and may help reduce liver damage. So that's burdock root. I find that it's pretty mild. It's pretty mild. It just kind of bulks up a soup without giving it a lot of calories. That's what I love about it. And then one other thing that I brought from the Asian supermarket is just bok choy. You go to the Asian supermarket, they have all kinds of bok choy. You go to our supermarket, it's like bok choy. So it's, pretty fast. These are little babies, and I find my husband, we put these in our steamer and we steam these up. And just really yummy. It's a cruciferous vegetable, so it's a potent cancer fighter. Particularly breast cancer has a compound in cruciferous vegetables called indole-3 carbinol that fights against breast cancer. But cruciferous vegetables we want to get more of in the diet. And while I was there, I just happened to get an avocado, because I just want to give avocados a plug, because it's a healthy fat that's really yummy. All right, so let's, we're going to wrap up. Some sea vegetables. One of them is wakame. This is big in Okinawa. If you bought this, you would reconstitute it with water. You put water, and then it really soaks up the water and it grows. Another sea vegetable is kombu. They have lots of minerals in there. You're getting fiber in the diet, not a lot of calories. When you have miso soup, that's you see little flakes of green. That's what you see. It's the little seaweed flakes in there. This is Costa Rica. This is the last blue zone that we'll chat about. There's an elder still working out in the field. So people in these cultures tend to do until they can't do anymore. They'll work the land until they can't anymore. What are some of the longevity factors out there? Well, people have a sense of purpose. They drink hard water. Their water tends to be high in calcium in that area. They stay connected to family. They eat a light dinner. In our country, we tend to eat a heavy dinner, so their dinners are light. They stay social. They keep doing physical chores. They get some sensible sun. They get their sleep. They keep the faith. They stay positive, and they eat for longevity. So what I put together in your handouts is a longevity food list. So these are foods that I've seen from reading about the different areas of longevity. So vegetables, really big. Tea. This is Jasmine Green Tea. This is one of the most popular teas in Okinawa. So it's green tea, and it's infused with jasmine flowers. When you get your tea bag, smell your tea bag, and you'll see it's really, really fragrant. It does have caffeine, so just keep that in mind. You might not want to have it till the morning time. But all kinds of fruits and vegetables. the foods of longevity that we see in other regions, we can get here, which is really nice. There's a few, like the bitter melon's a little tough. You have to go to sometimes Whole Foods will have those. But most of the foods we can get in the regular supermarket, which is nice. Cauliflower and eggplant and spinach and onions and potatoes, sweet potatoes. If you can't get the purple, the sweet is a really good alternative.
They sell blue potatoes. I bought at farmer market.
Nice.
Blue, outside
Yes.
and in.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. When you're getting blue, in that blue color spectrum, we think of blueberries. And in that color spectrum, it may be helpful for brain health. Eggplant is in that color spectrum, and there's a compound in the skin of eggplant that may be helpful for our brain cells. Now, one of the things I want to mention, I spoke about all these blue zones, these areas of longevity across the world, they have been studied, and the way of living, and some people still live that way, but it's a way that was popular until the 60s, early 70s. What happened in the early 70s, Hunza, for example, and Vilcabamba got highways. And highways bring in the C's, the 5 C's that aren't so great. What are the C's, without looking up there? What do you think? A highway brings in a car, and then what else? Candy, canned foods, Coca-Cola, cigarettes. Pakistan, cigarettes got brought up. Remember, it's an isolated area, but when the guys in northern Pakistan started joining the army, they'd go back with the canned foods and the cigarettes, and these isolated areas didn't have that. So the highways tend to bring in and pollution, more problems. So that, Vilcabamba as well, and it brought in more tourism to Vilcabamba. So there's more people touring that area than people used to inhabit. There's a square there that's very popular, and now it's it's very touristy now. In the handouts, I put a recipe for spaghetti squash. What I like about spaghetti squash is that it can be a quick way to make it. You could put it in the microwave, which is really great. So you just want to you'll see in that one, in my picture, this is me, I took a knife and I made slices so it doesn't explode in your microwave. And you could cook it in there. It takes about 7 minutes. So I cook it for 7 minutes, and then I turn it, and then I cook it for another, it's in your microwave probably about 7.5 to 10 minutes. You scoop out the seeds and the fibrous strands in the middle, and then you take a fork. Some of you done this? And you scoop out that great spaghetti squash, and it seems like it's spaghetti. One of the things that I do is I put some extra virgin olive oil and some Pecorino Romano cheese, and then a sprinkle of basil, garlic powder, onion powder, and oregano. And it's just really, really tasty. So just a nice little side dish, or instead of having pasta, if you're, if you feel like your pasta portions are getting too big and you want to cut back a little bit on your carbs, you can have a little bit of pasta and mix this in too. But it's just pretty yummy. I put some resources down there for you on the last slide, and I hope to see you again, because this actually concludes our 3-week series. I want to thank all of you for coming. Did everyone get a tea bag, or did we need to open another box? Oh yeah, take one. Oh yeah, those are for you guys. Yeah, take one, and then if we need to open the oh yeah. Oh, that's for you to take and enjoy tomorrow morning, sure. Yeah, and then just let me know after that goes around. If we exhaust the box, I'll open the second one. I like to keep it fresh, so I don't want to open it if we have enough in there. But yeah, enjoy. So thank you very much. I hope to be back again. It was so lovely to meet all of you. This has been really, really nice. I've gotten to know you, and I appreciate that you're here today. So think, what is your takeaway from this hour? And now it's been about an hour and a half. So thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you again this year. Thank you. Thank you.